and I had to refuse her. Your Grace knows I am short enough of men as it is. I suppose she has offered her contract to sell swords in the absence of local men. I am, as your Grace is aware, almost 100 men under strength. I have but 4 proper men at arms, and many of my archers are not all they should be. I respectfully request that your Grace either replace me or provide the necessary funds to increase the garrison to its proper place. I am your Grace's humblest and most respectful servant, John Crayford. The master of the Guild of Furriers had invited him to dinner. Sir John leaned back and decided to call it a day, leaving the letter lying on his desk. Listen, Carrick, the Red Knight.
Sweet Jesu!
Michael called from the other side of the wall. It was as high as a man's shoulder, created by generations of peasants hauling stones out of fields. Built against the wall was a 2-story stone house with outbuildings, a rich manor farm. Michael stood in the yard, peering through the house's shattered main door.
Sweet Jesu,
the squire said again.
They're all dead, Captain.
His warhorse gave the captain the height to see over the wall to where his men were rolling the bodies over, stripping them of valuables as they sought for survivors. Their new employer would not approve, but the captain thought the looting might help her understand what she was choosing to employ. In his experience, it was usually best that the prospective employer understand what he, or she, was buying, from the first. The captain's squire vaulted over the stone wall that separated the walled garden from the road and took a rag from Toby, the captain's page. Sticky mud from the endless spring rain covered his thigh-high buckled boots. He produced a rag from his purse to cover his agitation and began to clean his boots. Michael was fussy and dressed for fashion. His scarlet company surcoat was embroidered with gold stars, the heavy wool worth more than an archer's armor. He was well born and could afford it, so it was his business. It was the captain's business that the lad's hands were shaking.
"When you feel ready to present yourself,"
the captain said lightly, but Michael froze at his words, then made himself finish his task with the rag before tossing it back to Toby.
"Apologies, my lord,"
he said with a quick glance over his shoulder.
"It was something out of the wild, lord. Stake my soul on it."
"Not much of a stake,"
the captain said, holding Michael's eye. He winked, as much to amuse the onlookers of his household as to steady his squire, who was pale enough to write on. Then he looked around. The rain was light, just enough to weigh down the captain's heavy scarlet cloak without soaking it through. Beyond the walled steading stretched fields of dark, newly planted earth, as shining and black in the rain as the captain's horse. The upper fields toward the hills were rich with new greenery and dotted with sheep. Good earth and fertile soil promised rich crops as far as the eye could see on both sides of the river. This land was tamed, covered in a neat geometric pattern of hedgerows and high stone walls separating tilled plots, or neatly scattered sheep and cattle, with the river to ship them down to the cities in the south. Crops and animals whose riches had paid for the fortress nunnery, Listen, Carrick, that capped the high ridge to the south, visible from here as a crenellated line of pale stone. Grey, 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 from the sky to the ground. Pale grey, dark grey, black. Beyond the sheep, to the north, rose the Adna crags. 200 leagues of dense mountains that lowered over the fields, their tops lost in the clouds. The captain laughed at his own thoughts. The dozen soldiers nearest him looked. Every head turned, each wearing matching expressions of fear. The captain rubbed the pointed beard at his chin, shaking off the water.
"Jacques?"
he asked his valet. The older man sat quietly on a warhorse. He was better armed than most of the valets, wearing his scarlet surcoat with long, hanging sleeves over an eastern breastplate, and with a fine sword 4 feet long to the tip. He, too, combed the water out of his pointed beard while he thought.
"My lord?"
he asked.